I think what really benefits me is I don't go into anything assuming I'm going to be good at it. I just assume I'm going to suck and then go into things just going, if I'm going to be good at this ever, it's going to take me a long time.
Max is like an absolute stud when it comes to building businesses. I think at least as far as I know, you've built like 6 or 7 of them, starting from like the age of like 13.
Mm-hmm.
And so like when I think of an entrepreneur, I think of Max.
Wow.
Like I do, honestly, because you have all the qualities of someone who just gets after it. And you figure out ways to just like highlight your strengths and just suppress your weaknesses. At least that's what I see. Right. And so what I want to jump into right off the bat is how you've been able to like hack YouTube in a sense where you just seem to explode your channel. But not only that, like, what's this insane campaign you just did to become CEO of a famous company? Like,
yeah.
How did it go from this is a cool idea to actually putting it into motion?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of different pieces to discuss there. First, thanks for the intro. That was quite the intro. So, YouTube. My background is in business, so home service businesses primarily. Like David said, I started when I was 13 with a landscaping business, just solo operator for quite a while, and then by the time I was 19, that's when I was like, all right, let's have some like legitimate businesses with employees and systems and stuff like that. And that's when I purchased a moving company that I had used to work at actually. And then I built that up to 4 locations across the country, over 100 employees. And then since then, I've since sold all of those locations. I no longer do anything in home services as of right now. But a few years into that moving company journey, which was the big home service business, I started doing YouTube. The reason being just because I didn't know anyone else who was doing what I was doing. I thought there was something valuable to both teach and maybe I'd meet some interesting people. So just started with that, never really had an intention of like being a YouTuber or anything like that, but pretty quickly it just took off. And within like 3 years, I had like 800,000 subscribers. Right now, just over a million total followers. I have a couple other social pages now as well that are over a million that I'm not the face of. But that all kind of culminated, to answer the second part of the question, into really studying storytelling and content and influence and how all those pieces come together. And I was like, okay, I've been practicing for years, kind of honing these skills. What's a massive project I can do that both meshes like business and publicity stunts with content? And that was me trying to become CEO of a famous company. And so I did that and became honorary CEO of a $4 billion company called ClickUp.
Dude, hold on, back up. This is great. This is great. Okay, can we go back to the moving company? Because I like how he was like, yeah, I sold all those, and I was like, well, what do you mean you sold them? How much you sell them for? And then he's like, and then I just went after YouTube. Dude, fill me in on that exit. It was a proper exit, right?
Yeah, so I've had like several exits, varying degree of like what you want to call an exit. I've never sold to like a private equity firm, but mostly individuals. So my first exit was actually a pool cleaning business. I started that before the moving company.
Max, you look like a pool cleaner. You look like a pool cleaner, bro.
I do now, yeah. I now kind of look like the first logo that we have, I'm now realizing. So I built that up. That was when I was like 18. I actually sold that route for like $50,000. I got out of the pool business for like a year, but then that was so easy that I actually did that again, built it up and sold it again. But in the meantime, I was building the moving company. And basically with that, I actually purchased the moving company that I was working at when I first started the pool cleaning business. So I was working part-time at this moving company. I quit when the pool business was busy enough for me to, make some income. And then maybe like 6 months later, the owner approached me and offered me a good deal to purchase the company, essentially for the price of the trucks. It was like 35, 40 grand to buy the business, basically. So,
you used the cash. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, the business was just a truck sitting in like a Home Depot parking lot, right?
Pretty much,
Like,
yeah.
So essentially from the ground up, like starting from scratch.
Yeah, month 1 we did $5,000 in sales, so there wasn't much, going on there. By month 14, I think we hit $160,000 in sales, so it grew really fast. And then with that growth, I was like, all right, I want to have the biggest moving company in the world. So I started opening these locations across the country. I spent like about a year and a half, 2 years, just constantly flying around and training up crews and stuff like that. But then I realized that the margins on doing that just weren't there to be able to sustainably grow the way I needed to. So I eventually sold all those out-of-state locations. Those didn't sell for very much money because those weren't like the honeypot. That wasn't where all the income was. I refocused on the main location. That ran for just short of 10 years. The last 5, I spent about 5 hours a month on the business and pulled in about $150,000 a year net income from those. And then I finally sold that last year. And I sold that that was kind of like pieced apart. There was an asset sale. There was a sale of customers to another moving company. There was like a bunch of different buyers that purchased from it. A lot of learning lessons with that as well.
Wow. Can you share what you sold all that for?
Yeah. So part of it is continuous. So that kind of factors into it. So like the customer list, for example, that was sold there was like an upfront payment of like 50 grand, plus I get 10% on all jobs booked, plus bonuses. So like it'll come out to like a few $100,000 over like a course of years. The assets sold for like 200K, like the bigger assets like trucks and stuff like that. I still have 2 more that I'm selling. And then other miscellaneous stuff for like 500K, or not 500, 50K. It was pieced together. I don't know the exact amount, but like a few $100,000. Yeah.
Nice.
Dude, the thing that I like about like buying a franchise or starting a business like that is you win twice essentially. Mm-hmm. And like we talked about this in a previous episode, a win-win. You not only you win when you get paid to run the business, and then you get paid twice whenever you exit.
Right. On that
right.
I do have a major learning lesson though. That anyone who has a local type business or you're looking to start one, the biggest learning lesson to me on this business, because this one was my baby. It had the best net income. It was super consistent, all systemized. It was a package that could have just been sold, should have been able to be sold super easily to another moving company, to an investor, whatever, and they could just sit on it and make cash. The problem, or the thing that I learned that I'll avoid in the future, is don't start a business in a niche where the competitors are broke. So my problem was I had a really valuable asset, but all the competitors were broke. No one could pay me what it was actually worth. No one had the money. And it wasn't big enough for like a PE firm to be interested because we weren't doing, $50 million a year or whatever.
Got it.
That's great advice, dude.
Yeah, literally. It's like, know the sector you're in. Like, okay,
yeah,
who's my buyer, right?
Exactly. If they're struggling, good luck selling, So that was a big problem, that like I was able to crack kind of this industry, and I had really good margins, like 35% net income. It's super rare for that business. No one else really has that. No one else is that systemized. But because I was kind of on the peak there was no one who could buy the thing. They didn't see the value, and the people who didn't have enough cash. So it was like, yeah, big problem. So that's why I had to piece it out.
So did you make that sale just to bring more time to like YouTube or like your finance business that you're running, or to like these YouTube projects? Like I guess what? So what was the main upside of doing that? And then how did that pay off in your other avenues you're putting your time into?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just now really starting to pay off. But basically, I'm 28 now. For the first 12 years or whatever of being a business owner, I was just of the mindset like, I can take whatever is on my plate, more the merrier. Let's go. I don't care if I'm doing 10 different things. And then I kind of hit like a breaking point about like 9 months ago, where I was like, why am I focusing on so many different things, especially when some things earn way more money than others? It just doesn't make sense. So I sat down and I just wrote a list of everything I'm currently concerned about, anything that like takes up any amount of my brain power. And it was things like, making sure my family knows that I love them, but also like businesses or some newsletter or whatever. And I had like 53 things that I was currently concerned about. I'm like, what am I doing? So I just went through, I was like, I'm going to eliminate every single one possible. And the moving company was one of them. And it was like 6 months of just selling everything, getting rid of everything. So now I'm down to like 8 things.
That's amazing. That's a great enlightening moment. I feel like I've run across the same issue in the last year where I was like, I could do all of everything at one time. And now it's like 5 businesses in and I'm just like, dude, I'm split, dude. And it's like, damn.
Yeah,
so then
I'd like
where
to
does your
do one thing really well? That's my
where does your thought go then? Is it like what's your goal? What's your target? Do you have like a new financial target? Because I'm sure like, in your early 20s, whenever we met, you were grinding doing the moving company. And so, your financial target must have changed over time. So what does that look like now?
When I was younger, I didn't really think about like what's the level of wealth. I just wanted to like make it, just make good money. And I always thought like $1 million a year in net income would be insane. And then I hit that and I was like, all right, well, I got that. Like, what's next? Because I just like building and, working on shit. I kind of had some time where I was able to like sit and be like, all right, I have everything that like realistically I want. If I made 10 times more money, my life would get like 0.5% better, maybe. So like, it's not that anymore. What is it? But the problem is money is a great scorecard for like, are you winning or are you not winning? So like my guiding star is to become a billionaire by November 1st, 2028 is my goal. And I plan on doing that through like CPG brands through content.
Mm-hmm. Dude,
so are you looking the route of like content creator and then create a CPG brand, pump it out, things like that? I just did a video essay on Prime, and 50 Cent started Vitamin Water in 2006, sold it to Coca-Cola. They were doing 350 million in revenue, sold it for 1.2 billion, so a 3.5 EBITDA or a 3.5 revenue. And then I did the numbers on Prime, and they did 1.2 billion in revenue, which means at the same multiplier, they're selling it for 4.5 billion. Is that?
Yeah.
This is something you've thought about? It sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and I've seen this evolution over time, and I've like tried to do things within the finance space that are along these lines. But it basically has all come down to like one main idea that has 3 core components. So basically, I think all commodity type brands, like a drink, household items, things where like one item is very similar to the next. I think essentially all of those over the next 10, 20 years, they're going to either evolve or be replaced by brands that are obviously the product that's just fundamentally the best. Like that's the core. But then second, it's attached to some personality. And then third, it does some good for the world. So then when you look at it, you see a product on the shelf and you go, all right, well, that's the best version of the product. It's attached to some personality that I like. Plus, I know if I buy this, it does some kind of common good. So it just like checks every box possible. And it seems like that's the obvious evolution of these types of products. So that's kind of what I'm after right now. And not being the face of the social.
Is this like, you're not doing this by yourself, obviously.
No.
So how have you gotten yourself in a spot from just, going from starting in Arizona from scratch to getting to where you're at in Puerto Rico to building these networks? And so like, how did all that come together?
Yeah. First of all, why are you in Puerto Rico?
Why not, actually?
That's why, I guess. Straight living in the Caribbean. So what was the question? Sorry.
Yeah. So like how'd you assemble your team? Like it's not just a one-man operation. So how does all this start to like stack up, and how do you find these opportunities?
Yeah. So obviously I had experience in delegating things out with the home service businesses, but then getting into creative stuff, I realized that like delegating that is a whole different game, because you can't say do exactly this, 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 and this. It just doesn't work. So it's much more teaching like how your thought process works around that thing. You kind of give just like basic guardrails, and it's like, we're making something within this and this. do your best, and then you just tweak and, try to just find the very best people. Obviously that's like a cliche thing, but within like creative stuff, it's like the top 1% is literally 1,000 times better than the bottom 99%. It's not even worth talking to the bottom 99%, unfortunately, when it comes to like writing, editing, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, delegating has definitely been something that you've like, I guess, mastered in a sense. And so are there any like lessons you've learned early on? Like, I guess, what's your philosophy when you bring somebody on board? How do you evaluate them?
Yeah, we just redid all of this for the business like 2 weeks ago. I had everyone sit down and I was like, forget everything we've ever talked about. We're starting fresh. We had literally a day long like presentation from me where I went through like, these are our core principles. These are our values. This is where we're heading. These are the systems we're going to use. So like the big thing for me is the principles. So like I put together this document of 20 different core principles that essentially, if anyone in the company is debating on something, they can look at this and that's their Bible essentially. And I had everyone in the company scrutinize every single one, got suggestions, like made sure everyone bought into what I think is like the obvious way to proceed forward. And then it's really just comes down to like empowering people to be able to make good decisions and then giving them some framework to make the best decisions possible on your behalf seems to be what it comes down to.
Well, what does Russell Brand say? Or not Russell Brand. Who's with Virgin?
Brunson?
I'm sorry. I told, no, who is it? Richard Branson.
Yeah.
I said Russell Brunson. That's a totally different character. But what he says, find the best people for the job and just get out of their way.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but yeah, it's
Totally. I mean, somebody has to cast the vision.
Yeah. Exactly.
So hitting $1 billion here in the next, 4 to 5 years, you're gonna have to make some massive changes probably to just how you operate and how you think.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been like a struggle to really stay on task? I mean, like what does your day-to-day look like? And I like, are you constantly focused on daily performance, or is it more like how do you evaluate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So recently, it's been a lot of system building, setting up things, because basically what happened was 2-3 months ago, I was in this period where I was getting rid of everything off my plate, and I was just doing that to free up space. And then as I was doing that, I was just writing down ideas I had. Like, I could go this way, I could go that way, I could go this way. But I was forcing myself to not make any decisions on which path. And then finally around the first of the year, I was like, all right, this seems like the obvious path that's just screaming my name. I'm gonna go all in on that path. And then that's been about a month. So it's been a lot of like that ground up startup kind of system buildings, getting the right people in place kind of thing has been the recent work on my behalf. And it'll probably be that for 3-4 months before those things are all set up.
Can we hear some specifics on that? So like,
Sure.
Fill us in. What are you working on?
On like the systems?
Yeah, or systems, or like what's the goal with the brand? Do you have the product chosen yet, or still open to that?
Yeah, so I'm the first kind of niche that we're going after is the cleaning niche. So we're going to be launching cleaning products through that niche, and it started first with just content. I suppose I probably can't say the exact name of the page online right now, but I can say that in 4 months we got 4 million followers. So we're doing pretty good on that, and the product is launching fairly soon. So this is kind of the proof of concept where if I can figure out how to convert views into sales in this niche through this product, I can essentially take that model and then put that on any consumer good and try to just replicate it, 100 times.
Dude, this is like the 2024 Mr. Clean. So Mr. Clean, like in the 80s, was bald and like huge, and now you have like Max with long flowing hair and more cut. It's the rebrand.
It's pretty similar, yeah, honestly. Except I'm not the face. So that was another thing I needed to get over. Yeah.
Yeah. How come you chose to make yourself not the face of it? Because that's hard to get around, I feel like.
Yeah, so that was more the biggest thing there was like an ego decision. Like if I'm putting this many resources into building someone's persona profile, your ego wants to go, well, just build your own, get yourself famous, whatever. But that business model has a fundamental flaw where if you are the face and you are the CEO, you're literally the product and the person pushing all the levers that need to make the product happen. It's a bad business model for getting a whole lot done. So it's just like, if I really want to scale, I just can't be the face of it, unfortunately.
I think you just like nailed the problem that I'm running into. you know, it's just, being the person, like the linchpin and everything, like, the face, the problem solver, the person everybody goes to. It's difficult to break out of that.
Yep.
And so but I guess making the decision up front and putting the right people in place, like that kind of avoids that hang up right up front. Cause dude, whenever you were like hustling your moving company, I remember we went and I helped you out a little bit with cold knocking on like storage companies to try to pump your business out. That was a pretty fun little challenge. And so did any of like that crazy stuff that we were doing back in the day, did that play into the inspiration of trying to become CEO of a famous company? And also, was that like, from my perspective, it looked like a networking play as well, to really try to like build some connections organically with some high net worth individuals who have already built massive companies. Was that part of it, or?
That wasn't an intention, but it did happen. So that was cool. Like I legitimately like know a billionaire now. So like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting about the marketing experiment, like, going to the storage facilities and stuff. I don't think it was directly attached, but it definitely doing that. So just for context, I went to 500 different businesses and basically, pitched them on referring my business. So we had a moving company. I would go to real estate agents, storage facilities, apartment buildings, and we just try to like become their friend basically to get referrals. And I started that challenge like terrified of doing it and ended it like, I'm pretty good at talking to people now, just like random people. So like that skill definitely somehow fed into the CEO challenge. But yeah, I don't know exactly, how it fit in.
Can we hear about the CEO challenge? Because I don't know anything about it.
Sure. Yeah. So basically with this, I wanted to make a video within the finance niche that no one has made before, like a challenge it's just insane. So I thought, what is the biggest version of like a finance video? All right, well, everyone wants to be rich. Everyone wants to be the boss. So I was like, all right, what if you can kind of hack the system and legitimately become CEO of a famous company by just doing like marketing stunts and just being good at like persuasion and content and stuff like that. So I wanted to do that challenge and then pair it by making essentially a movie about the process. So it's kind of like two big things that happened at the same time. So we basically just went through the hiring process, if you will, like what does it take to get a job? And we just went the biggest ideas we could on each and everything. So it's like, all right, well, if you're applying for a job, you make a resume. And we were like, okay, what's the biggest, craziest way you could have a resume? Put my face on a billboard that says, fuck your CEO, hire me. So that's what we did.
Where did you put this, dude? That's amazing.
It was in Miami.
Dude, of course it was. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so we just did levels of that. So it's like, all right, well, if you're applying for businesses, you can only apply to one at a time. So what's like the crazier version of that? So I hired 10 exact replicas of me to go into businesses and apply as me, dressed up as me with, resumes and stuff like that. So we just went through the whole process and went like, what's the craziest way we can do each and everything to try and get on the news to then get the exposure of even more companies. And it worked. It got the exposure, and this company, ClickUp, interviewed me and made me their honorary CEO.
So,
dude, it's fucking
from the moment of starting this, how long did this whole process take?
Yeah, so it was about 5 months of planning, and then it was 2 weeks of actual action. So the thing was to make it happen in 2 weeks. So it was about 5 months of planning to then do it in 2 weeks. And then probably 4 months of post-production because we wanted to like make it a legitimate movie, essentially. So all in 10 months, something like that. A long,
And then when
long
ClickUp
time.
reached out to you, what did they say? And did they just send you a DM or?
It was an email. So we had a website with like a form and stuff like that. That was all, linked to the campaign. And it was just like, we want to chat with you or something like that.
Yeah. And so you got an email from the CEO himself or an executive or assistant?
Yeah, the CEO himself. However, he could have been an assistant, through his email or whatever. But yeah.
And what did that email say? It was like, hey, Max, I'd like you to take my job.
It was like, we see what you're doing. We like what you're doing. We want to be a part of, this thing that's going on. Yeah.
That's so funny, dude. You must have been so stoked when you got that email.
Yeah. It was, well, I mean, there was a lot riding on someone getting that email, and like we were pitching lots of companies. And actually the only other like major, this actually didn't make it into the movie, but the only other major company that would even that was really listening to us was Red Bull. So you can kind of tell like the brands that get it are so far and few that like it says something that the two companies that were like talking to us were Red Bull and ClickUp, which both kind of do these kinds of new style marketing. It's like the ones who just get it,
Yeah. That seems like
Devin's
a Red Bull
Red
move.
Bull guy.
Dude, I love it.
Devin's
I
a big
love
Red
it.
Bull guy.
Yeah. Not even the drink, just their advertising.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's not even
like, how do we,
it's just cool stuff. Cool.
How do
things to
we
look at.
advertise
It's so smart.
our energy drink? Well, let's send somebody to space. Cool. I'm in, dude. I'm sold. I'm a fan.
Yeah. Oh man, dude, that's cool. So are there like any other massive like projects you're working on that are to that scale where you're trying to like relaunch something publicly?
Well, there's been like since that a lot of people saw it and saw the quality and things like that, and they want to work with us. However, now it's become a difficult decision on whether or not to do more of those because they take so much effort. And now we have these other things that are really, really doing well. So it's one of those focus problems, which lane do we go down? So that's something that I need to decide on.
Yeah. How did you handle your like early success with YouTube and then like reinvesting back into content creation? Like you had to have noticed, okay, I got some revenue coming in from this. Like I noticed your content switch from more challenge style stuff to just more like, dude, you're putting out like a daily market update essentially when COVID hit. And so like what was that process like?
Yeah, so the switch for me content wise was initially I was just making videos about myself and my business just to show here are the things that I'm doing, here's what's working for me, or here's like some extreme marketing stunt I'm doing, things like that. And then I went more general. So basically the question was like, all right, what kind of content would benefit more people? And at the time that was like the business stimulus programs where there was so many business owners trying to figure out what was going on with those during COVID. Just like the stock market was going like crazy during that time. So yeah, there was about a year period where I did about 15 videos a week. So I guess just more than 2 a day on the YouTube channel. And then took that and then wanted to make, basically, that's when I really got interested in like storytelling and content in general. And I basically used all the money that was coming in through all these channels to just put myself essentially through like film school times 10, where I just built this massive team of like writers and editors and creative directors and things like that to just try to figure out this content world. I probably spent like $1.5 million just like learning about this kind of stuff. And then, made a million mistakes, a million things that like, I guess you just got to learn the hard way. But now I have a much smaller team, a much more efficient team of just like the very best people. We have like, I think 12 people or something like that right now working on various content projects.
No, that's incredible. It's fun to see because like, I know there's a lot of people out there that want to achieve that kind of success. Like they want to do those things, right? But I think it's the consistency aspect of it that really like stunts anybody's growth. And like I said earlier, like you're just like so good at being consistent. Now, did you find yourself struggling? Like what were you telling yourself early on? Like to keep momentum or just to stay in it?
I think what really benefits me is I don't go into anything assuming I'm going to be good at it. I just assume I'm going to suck, and like I assume I'm going to suck and then go into things just going, if I'm going to be good at this ever, it's going to take me a long time. So like with content, I didn't go into it being like, I'm going to be a millionaire YouTuber. I was just like, I'm just going to make content because I feel like that's what I should be doing. And eventually it started getting more popular. And it's like, okay, I'm going to invest more and more into this because I'm also always just looking for like, what's the next 10x thing that's kind of calling my name? And then like willingness to go towards that thing. But yeah, in terms of consistency, I think it's just making the decision. This is just the thing I do now. So like, perfect example, when I was 23, I decided to start playing piano. And at that age, most people are like, you're an adult, you can't learn, you have to learn an instrument when you're like 8 or whatever. It's like, whatever, I always wanted to learn, I'm just gonna start playing. When I started playing, I just told myself, I'm not gonna be good for 5 years. That's just the way it is. I never played, I have no musical experience, I'm gonna suck for 5 years. Well, it's been 5 years now of playing at least like half hour every day, taking lessons. And guess what? I'm finally good. It took about 5 years. So I just decided it's going to take this long. Am I willing to do that for 5 years? Yep. Okay, I'll do it. Like, just don't think too much about the decisions. Just fucking do it, you know?
Dude, that's such a great attitude. That's amazing.
Yeah, I just don't think there's any other way to do it, to be honest. Like, if you wake up every day, like, am I going to go to the gym? Am I going to read? You're going to fail. Like I don't want to do those things most days, you know? But it's just like, that's just what I do, you know?
Yeah. How are you setting up your environment to make sure you actually do these things?
I am pretty good about that. I like silence. I like just being in the zone and like that flow state. So I like to wake up early. I do. So something I recently did schedule wise, I guess this is probably like 9 months to a year ago. There's like a checklist of things that I feel like I need to do for myself every day. And that's play piano, read, do some like journaling, goal setting kind of stuff. And then I do Duolingo every day. And I found out that if I did that at the end of the day, I would just dread doing it because I would just start work and then never want to stop working. And then it'd be like 9 p.m. and I have this list of stuff and it just wasn't working. So what I did was just put all that stuff in the beginning of the day. So I just have a block of like 3 hours of just like, this is what Max needs to do today. And then I just work for the rest of the day. And that works pretty well for me. And I don't touch my phone that whole time in the beginning.
So stays in the cupboard, don't touch it, just knocking out those things. Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing there is just like deciding exactly what you said. This is what I do now.
Exactly. Yeah, I think self-sabotage are people who are like, maybe I'll go to the gym, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I feel the same struggles too. And even in real estate, growing my brokerage and all of that, like I'm in year 3 now. And I kept telling myself like, you know, we made arrangements where maybe we bought into a lease that was a little longer than we wanted it to be. You know, we lock ourselves into like fixed monthly expenses. And my attitude has always been, well, in 5 years from now, I'll be making so much money. I'm not going to care about this. And so like, I just kind of like forced myself to have to play the long game with certain things. And I think that's helped me out early on because I'll tend to, at least the prior version of myself will tend to dabble in something, get a little bit of success and then try to find that next shiny object. So it's like, when do you decide like something isn't actually what you wanted it to be? You know, like when do you pivot from something you said, okay, Max 5 years ago said, this is important to me. And then maybe do you discard it? I read this book called The Dip. And so like that book basically talks about the phenomenon where you get into something and, you know, right up front, you excel at it pretty quickly, like your learning curve, you start to pick it up pretty fast. And then you start to hit this plateau where you're not making very much improvement. And you tend to fall off. And that's usually the point where people give up. And so like at that point, when do you decide something's worth continuing doing? Or like, you know, you should maybe just stop doing that stuff?
Yeah, that's so real quick question for you. Did it work? Like forcing yourself into long-term thinking, like future me is not going to care about that money. Like, did that pressure work?
It absolutely did, you know? And like, I mean,
Nice.
like when you give yourself no option, but to stay in it. I think it's like you just find a way to get it done. And so, and then it's just a matter of, I guess, building your life around the business you're creating. Because I just tend to throw myself at things, like whenever I take on a challenge or I set off to do something, I usually go extreme. Just in line with like when me and you ran that ultra marathon.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Dude, we're just like, we're in the hotel room at Whistler. We're kind of stretching out. We're sore. We're like, yeah, I'm listening to David Goggins, and an ultra marathon sounds kind of fun. Yeah. And then I think we just kind of said like, yeah, I would do that. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then we just kind of said, all right, let's put it on the calendar. And just,
we did it.
Having that accountability in there too is crucial. Because like I said earlier, with like those phone apps or something, like I'm stronger than an app, and like if a prior version of myself was a little more motivated than I am right now, like I'll just discard whatever ambition I had. I'll just say, fuck that. I'm onto something else. But when you have that accountability or somebody like doing it with you,
right,
it puts you in a position where it's like you can't really do that because someone else is expecting you to perform.
Yeah, negative consequences work really well, even if it's as much as like betting your friend $100 that you can't do, X, Y, and Z. Like that works pretty well. But in terms of like reevaluating, like that's a big problem. Future or past me wanted this 5 years ago. I'm still working on it. Do I still care? Is this still worth my time? I don't know if I'm the best person to ask on this because sunk cost fallacy, which is essentially that, I'm pretty bad about. Like if I'm doing something, I want to keep doing it. If I've spent money on it, I want to keep spending money on it. But the one question that does help me with that, because I'm very conscious of trying to be better about this, about that fallacy, is I just ask myself, if I knew everything I know now about that business, that relationship, that thing, would I have started it again? And if no, then I probably need to stop doing it right now, or at the very least, really evaluate why I'm still doing it. So with this information, would I have started? If no, you probably should cut it. And that goes for like relationships, that goes for business, that goes for all kinds of things.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And, so like where you're at now, living in Puerto Rico, doing your thing, like, do you see yourself like staying there long-term? Do you have any plans to maybe come back to the States, opening up another brick and mortar venture? Like what does all that look like for you now?
Yeah, I'm pretty fluid about that. I think I'll be here for at minimum a few years, and I'm open to longer, but I'm also open to kind of wherever I need to be the most effective. That's where I'm going to end up being. Like I've found that, I live in a beach house right now. Obviously that's amazing. Literally the ocean is behind my back right here. Like that's great. But I'm like 1% happier here versus my little apartment where I sat in a tiny room just working on the computer all day. So like I'm pretty much chilling anywhere. So like if I have to move somewhere else that's not the ocean, I'll miss it, but like I'll do that if that means being more effective for whatever reason.
Nice. Max, do you mind if we change gears? We talked earlier about the segment Shit That Works.
Sure.
I feel like we kind of started this a little bit, but I just want to hear some shit in your life that just works for you.
Sure. Yeah. So the one that we've kind of hinted at, I don't know if we've given a full thought on this, is locking the phone away for bed. I started doing this like 4 months ago. The reason is I would wake up and I'd just like be on my phone doing who knows what for like 20 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes, and I wouldn't even remember it. I'm just like delaying the inevitable. And then same goes with going to sleep, just be on my phone. So I was like, let me just try locking my phone away, just see how it is. And I fully expected to just like hate doing this. But from day one, I loved it. Like I realized I was missing nothing. And then when I do get my phone like late morning, I find that I actually dread getting my phone, where I'm like, now the phone part of the day is starting. So I don't know. I love it.
The phone part of the day. Dude, yeah. I'm gonna implement this tonight, and see how it goes.
Try it out.
I love it.
Let me know how it goes.
Shit, that
look.
works.
I'll give it another shot. I'll give it another shot.
If you want me just to rattle through some other stuff that works. Okay, number 2 on my list: study psychology. This has been so massive for me, just learning everything I can about psychology, because ultimately, if you're making money, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with their psychology. Like, you're just fulfilling their needs in one way or another. So like understand how people work. Like it's so huge, fundamental.
And it's
Do you have any resources or recommendations for people on that?
Yeah.
Or kind of depends?
Right now I'm reading a textbook called Evolutionary Psychology, which is all about just how people make decisions. And pretty much the thesis of the book is like everything comes down to propagating your genes, either through survival or through mating strategies. Like everything basically goes through one of those lenses. So that's really illuminating. I also got a book on here. This book, Civilization and Its Discontents by Sigmund Freud. This one blew my mind. So that's definitely worth reading. Storytelling is also kind of psychology. So this book, Story, extremely good, because you have to understand people if you're going to tell a good story. But yeah, there's some basic resources.
Cool. Those are great. I got into storytelling about a year and a half ago. Once I started getting into content creation, I hired this guy from a company, David J.P. Phillips. He has a YouTube TED Talk called The Magical Science of Storytelling. It's my favorite TED Talk of all time. And he has a company, and I hired them. And every week I would get on the Zoom with them and practice storytelling. And they would give me feedback and teach me things. And my speaking and my just everything I started doing got better because of it. It was also the most fun thing to learn that I've probably learned in a long time.
Agree. Totally agree. So are there any insights that you learned particularly from storytelling that like translated to other parts of your life?
I noticed people started telling me that, wow, that was a good story. Or wow, I can't believe that happened. That was a big one. And that happened almost instantly. The first thing that once I started coaching with my coach, Alex is his name, I learned I had a weakness, which was I would typically start my stories really strong, and then they would just kind of fade to an end with no real captivating, just. And so we worked on for a long time, starting with the end in mind. That way you wrap it up with this nice bow. That was a really big part. We spent a lot of time on vocal crutches, ums, ahs, likes, knows, all that. The third biggest lesson from that was not so much the storytelling itself, but understanding how timing is so important with your story. For example, if you're out at a restaurant and you have this rehearsed story that you know is 4 to 5 minutes long, but you haven't placed your order yet, it's not the time, because the waitress is going to probably come halfway through it. And then you lose that momentum. And so you either hold off and you tell them and you leave them in suspense, be like, oh, it's actually, and you leave them with a hook or a cliffhanger, and then you tell them after, or you just shorten it to something that you know is a little bit better.
Yeah, that's good.
So much. And it's the same thing as anything. It's those little daily nuances you don't think about until it actually happens.
Yeah, I think honestly everyone should learn storytelling, because everyone's been in like a group of people and then there's someone who's telling a story and they're just terrible at it, and like the whole group gets a gross feeling when that person is telling that. You're just like, like you just know the feeling of everyone else in the group. Like we all wish that this person would shut up, and that's fixable.
It is.
Everybody's like, I need another drink.
That's
and everybody
so
just
fixable.
dissipates.
It'll make your life better if you learn how to tell good stories.
Yeah, that's so true. Early on, whenever I was getting into sales, I studied like how actors prep for like movies and their scripts and stuff. And there's so much to be said about like not having a good smile or knowing like how your face shows up, on screen. And so like I've had this thing where I was missing a tooth for a while. And I would compensate by only smiling with this side of my mouth. And I didn't notice that until I started getting on camera.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've always looked like this. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And so I started studying like different exercises to enhance your smile, just so I can compensate for that. And then also like getting good at scripting, early on. Like sometimes a lot of things in sales is like it's repetitive and you run into the same things over and over again. And so it's just like giving yourself the like enough time to just like get comfortable saying a rehearsed script and like being intentional about it is super important. And I noticed that with like content creation too. Most people I talk to that have successful channels or are really good at sales, if you look at like their logs on their phone of like recorded videos or bits they try to take, they usually do like 20 to 25 attempts before they get the right one, you know? And so it just kind of like brought me down to earth to think like, it doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. You can work on these skills, and it's just stuff that you could just build over time, like being patient with it. And so, that's helped out a ton. My hack for the psychology aspect of it, like understanding that, is just to marry a psychologist.
Yeah. Get out of here, David.
Like I have a DSM like right here. So I could start diagnosing people if I wanted to, I think. But it is good to understand like, where are people coming from? Like when they're talking, like I catch myself sometimes being a little abrasive to people, and I'm like, it's never the person. It's always like how I'm showing up. And I think that's such a big part of just like being prepared or having awareness and like removing your ego out of this scenario. And so like for me, what's really helped me out a ton is I noticed I had a lot of these biases towards like things that people usually frown upon, such as like using marijuana, or like I would overcompensate by drinking, right, to try to like loosen myself up or like be able to like survive in an environment with a bunch of people. And I realized that was a crutch. I'm like, I could have just as much fun without doing all of that.
Yes.
And so I noticed whenever I started like taking edibles or like smoking a little weed or something, like, dude, it just like, it relaxes me. I don't take things personally. I can flow in a conversation, and I can't do it during the day because I find myself having too many internal conversations where I don't really talk to anybody. I'm more in my head, but it allows me some space at the end of the day to reflect on what I'm doing. And I kind of like have some realizations when I have those moments.
Yeah.
And I think that just helps me just be a better person overall throughout my day to day.
I agree. I second that. To me, the ideal weed schedule is one edible a week. That's my ideal. The reason being, I find if I do it every day, then I start not caring about the problems in my life. But one a week, that just like reminds me of like, oh wow, things are really great. And it gives you those ideas that like you just don't solve without it. So yeah, as much as I want to every single day, I just find there's a balance that for whatever reason in my brain, I just stop caring about stuff.
Shit, that works. An edible a week.
Yeah. Shit, that works. Yeah. Do you have like a regimen of like your substances you take on a daily basis? To like performance?
I mean, not really. Like 2.5 pounds of meat. That's my regimen, pretty much.
Are you on the carnivore diet?
Like pretty much like 90. I call it carnivore and cookie dough. So it's like 98% meat, and then I'll just eat some cookie dough every few days. Pretty much is my diet.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, cookie dough's great.
I'm not necessarily recommending that diet, but it seems to work for me.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I used to like get wrapped up in this like hustle culture.
Yeah,
where it's like wake up at 3 a.m., like, hit the gym, work out hard, get a meal in, 6 meals a day, all this stuff. But I'd realize right around like 9:30, 10 o'clock, dude, I bonk hard, like I crash. And it's like I need to go back to bed. And it's like so much for this like miracle routine. But I did that for like 2 years, and I never understood why I was so tired and groggy throughout the day. And dude, when I started making sleep a priority, like everything changed.
Yeah.
Whenever like I don't like to start my day until I feel rested. I don't know about you guys, but like I'll put off like it like if I'm in my normal routine throughout the week, I'm getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Whereas before, I used to tell myself if I got at least 5 hours, I'm good. But that was usually accompanied with like 3 monsters, some pre-workout and like whatever else I could just put in my body throughout the day. And so for me, 8 hours of sleep, intermittent fasting, where I usually don't eat for the first half of the day. And then I supplement with like these nicotine packets. And like that keeps me just like focused, dialed in throughout the day. I don't crash. And then at the end of the day, that's where I pack it in. So like you have the 2.5 pounds of meat. I try to eat at least 1 pound of meat, like for sure. I usually throw a steak on the grill. And then I just eat as much as I possibly can. In like the later part of the day. So I'll put down like probably, 2,500 to 3,000 calories within like a 2-hour window.
Yeah.
And that works because I can deal with being tired at the end of the day.
Right.
But like if I eat too early in the day, it just totally wrecks my productivity.
Yeah, I think I've noticed a trend where so people like you're a tank. You're one of those people who like I feel like you're never sick. You're like fit even if you didn't really go to the gym. You could just go and drink like 20 beers, you'd be fine. You're just like one of those people who's like a tank. My buddy Dan is like that too. I feel like people who are just tanks, they tend to have that like I can sleep 5 hours, I'll be fine because like everything else like pretty much just works. I never had that. Like I was always like, if I slept 5 hours, I'm getting nothing done. So like I just have to sleep a full night. I have to eat well because like I just fall apart so easily. So I just feel like I have to do all those things. I never had like I'm just fine no matter what like scenario for whatever reason. So I was kind of forced into doing it the right way, I think.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, like all my influences though were from like YouTube and all these like these motivational guys. And I feel like it's all bullshit. Like in reality, the people that are getting stuff done, the realization to me was like, I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. to be successful. Like there's night shift workers that get plenty done and they're successful. And it's like, okay, well, that's obviously not the variable. It's like when you wake up, it's what you're doing when you're awake.
Right.
So how do you optimize that?
Yeah, it's just questioning and the consistency. Really it comes down, wake up at 10 a.m., wake up at noon, just be consistent on your everything, I guess, and you'll be just fine. Yeah.
That's exactly it. You got anything else on your list? Shit that works?
Yeah, let's see here. So another thing I've been doing maybe for like 6 months is writing every day, writing down what my long-term goals are, and then writing what I'm doing today to move towards that. So I frame it like, who am I? It's like some kind of aspirational statement, like it's supposed to be a little bit arrogant. So who am I? Big goal, and then what am I going to do today to reach that big goal? And it has worked surprisingly well for me. Like within a couple months, I was like, wow, this is like, I am literally receiving things that were not the case. So like, for example, one of the things I write is, I'm a magnet for only the best people. And then I'm going to successfully attract and maintain a team of only A players. And then what am I going to do today to reach that? Literally within like 6 weeks of doing this, and I don't know how this works. It sounds like the power of attraction kind of thing. I don't know how it works, but I swear it does. Within like 6 weeks, I had multiple people who I've wanted to work with in the past, like asking me for a job to join my team. And this has never happened like this before. Like literally within like 6 weeks of starting to do this. I don't know why. It seems to work. I don't know how. It seems like magic.
Dude, it's the law of attraction. I believe in that as well. I always say, my business partner, Ryan, he's like a freaking wizard with that stuff, dude. Whatever he just projects outwardly just like comes to fruition. And whenever he starts like being negative, dude, I'm like, stop that shit. Like it's going to happen. Yeah. And so like, it's just so weird. I think, the thoughts you put out there, the intentions you set for the day definitely do like make waves, for your future. So that's cool to hear you put that into practice and it's coming together.
Yeah. I think the key is like, what are you doing today to get to that thing? That's probably the reason, but it seems like there's more going on than just that. I don't know. It's some kind of magic. Let's see what else I got here. We already talked about have principles. That's huge. My last one on the list, be a giver. So like, I think it's this weird thing where like when you first start making money, you kind of have to be really selfish to just make anything. But then as soon as you have any amount of success, you need to just start being like a giver in like 10 different ways. So like, if someone reaches out to you for some kind of advice, just give them way more advice than like they would ever expect. Just like be a giver and it comes back 10 times more with just just constantly putting out good stuff. That's why being a YouTuber and like making good videos works, is you have hundreds of thousands of people who you're giving to consistently, and they all kind of feel like they owe you a little bit. And then they start giving back, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's that, reciprocity.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. So,
I
like,
mean, even if it doesn't come back, it's just like, I think it's just do it anyway. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Just start off any relationship with being the giver. Just test the waters. And then, you know, if someone shows you that they're not a good person, just cut that off. Don't be a giver to them. Just go to the next person. And you'll just find good people. Like, quickly. You'll be surrounded in good people who are all trying to help each other. And everyone just rises up. Like, givers are attracted to other givers. It just works.
Yeah. No,
Max, it seems like you've got the perfect attitude of an entrepreneur. Just all the right things that it takes to be successful, like disciplined, focused, willing to give. I mean, that's a big part of being successful, like you said. And then just the curiosity to learn, to read, to question things. You said a bunch of things on here, which is like, you're like, you know, I thought about that and I didn't think that actually was reasonable. Like, kind of when you were looking back on your past relationships. Where did that attitude, that life's attitude come from?
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of simple. So I love figuring out the system to a thing. Like, you know, storytelling, for example. What is the system to storytelling that once you solve, you can just tell good stories? What's the system to content where if you figure that out, you can just make viral content? So I love trying to figure out those kinds of like systems, both small and big, you know, learning music, whatever. And to me, entrepreneurship is the biggest game. So the question is, what is the system to that game? It comes down to, you know, like you said, being a giver, constantly curious, figuring out the subsystems. Like, I just feel like I have nothing else to do but to try to figure out this game. And that's what I'm going to spend my time doing, because it's so boring doing anything else, really.
Yeah, that's great. And so like, those are all the positives that come with being an entrepreneur. But like, where do you find, if any, that those attitudes kind of potentially make your life more challenging than, say, a normal person?
I mean, it sucks like 80% of the time. So like, there's no denying.
There it is.
Yeah. Like, there's no denying that. It's mostly lows and then a few just insane highs that like no one ever experiences, basically. So it's just like dealing with that just terrible, you know, emotional problems or work problems or lawsuits or whatever is, causing problems. So yeah, I guess what are the problems to I guess it's just the lifestyle in general. You have to have such a simple lifestyle that, like, you can't have tons of friends that you're texting all the time and having a blast with if you're going to try to solve business at the highest level. You're just not going to be able to spend as much time with your family as you want, or your girlfriend, or whatever. Like, there's just a million sacrifices. So that's really like the fundamental problem. But then of course there are problems within business itself that really make you go like, why am I doing this? I don't even need to be doing this. But again, there's like, what else is there to do? So
Thank you for that. I ask because I'm putting out a piece of content that's there's a Netflix series titled How to Become a Tyrant, if you guys have ever heard of it. It's fantastic. But they have this condescending tone. So when the episode starts, it's, so you want all of the power you can have. And it presents it in a way like you want it. But then, of course, they show the shortcomings of achieving that level of power. And so we're doing a piece on, so you want to be a billionaire. And it's like, the whole concept is, it's amazing. And all these things that most entrepreneurs want, but there are cons. And if you have children, you're probably not going to be making it to their soccer games when you have board meetings. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure it sounds extremely, big-headed from me, but it's like, I truly feel that I will be a billionaire by November 1st, 2028, like I think that'll happen. And then because I'm so sure of that, because I'm literally doing every single thing I can to hit that. So it's like, there's nothing I'm doing where it's like, sure, there's a chance that it doesn't happen, but I'm doing every piece that's necessary to hit that thing. But because I'm so sure of that and sure of what I'm doing every day, I can actually kind of sit back in the moment of the day to day and go, when that happens, I'll look back at today, and this is when I'll be fond of the time the most, when I'm grinding towards the big goal. Because I know if I look in the past, like becoming a millionaire or something like that, or like selling some part of a business or something, you're not that excited about the day where you sold it. You're excited about all the work that you put in to hit that thing. Like that's what you're nostalgic about. So you can actually be nostalgic about the now if you're doing everything you need to be doing and you have a big goal that you're fairly sure of, hitting.
Wow.
Dude, that's a good nugget right there.
That's a beautiful frame. That's what that is. That's a beautiful frame of mind.
But again, it still sucks 99% of the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I would imagine that, like most entrepreneurs, you probably get a certain bit of dopamine from the shit.
Yeah,
it's just
probably.
Like I got subpoenaed the other day for some crap, and I was just like, it was like the second one in 3 months, and I was just like, off to the races. Here we go.
Yep, I've been there. Yeah. I mean, if you're in business long enough, you're going to get sued, unfortunately, and it's going to be the worst thing you've ever dealt with. And you just,
I just tell myself, I'm like, this is just going to be a good addition to my book I'm going to write.
Yeah.
I just think of chapters, like every phase of my life as a chapter.
Yeah.
Just getting through it. Cause like, I don't know, what always kept me going early on was just reminding myself, if I never quit, I won't fail. Mm-hmm. And so like just that mantra of like, okay, this is the path, this is the grind, this is the barrier to entry. And so I guess it's just like, just embrace it. And just know that this is what it takes. Right.
Yeah. And it's just like, also ask yourself the questions like, is this worth it? Like for most people, you're going to have a better life just having a decent job and plenty of free time. Like that is better for most people. If you're attracted to that, if the entrepreneurship route isn't screaming in your face, it's probably not the vein to go down. Like it's too shitty in too many different ways. Like you're going to quit otherwise unless you feel compelled.
Yeah. How long have you had like a goal you've been shooting for? Because obviously you changed it to $1 billion. So at what point did you realize like the goals I set before aren't serving me? I got to switch that up.
Yeah. So I kind of went goalless for a while and was just like grind, and I was just getting good results. So I wasn't really thinking like, here's where I'm going towards. And really it's within the last 6 months or so is when I was like, really put it down to the paper. This is what I'm doing. And it was probably conceptualizing things that I was already trying to work towards. But really it was the decision was, I have essentially everything that I want. Like realistically, there's nothing else I want. Okay, if that is true, what am I working towards and why? Why am I even in this game? And then what is the end game there? So it's just kind of like, I have everything. What do I want to do, basically? And I was like, well, I want to keep doing what I'm doing. What's the biggest version of that? $1 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So then it sounds like, kind of piecing this together for anybody that's watching this. So it's just get good systems in place, have discipline. So it's like, just kind of fix your personal routine. Like, start from scratch, like when you wake up with yourself, make sure you're in a prime state where you feel best. And it doesn't have to be go cold plunge or go play the piano or read a book. It's just whatever like gets you in a good space. And then it's focusing on, okay, what is my daily targets? And then what's like an outcome in the future that's not too far out of reach that I can strive for each day. That helps build towards my potential. Cause that's, kind of been my guiding force is constantly just focusing on, I don't necessarily have a 5-year goal. Like I haven't for a while. I do now, but it's more or less, it's like, I don't even know what my potential is. So I just need to maximize each day and be okay with the early stages of failing, of kind of being like that day sucked. And not getting too caught up over that. So one thing I started doing recently, I don't know if you've implemented any of this in any capacity, but I don't judge the days. I judge the week. I look back and I examine like, how was the week, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would I rate it? And then that gives me at least enough like reassurance that, okay, I could do better next week, because the
Yeah, I
days
like
can
that.
get out of hand pretty quickly. It's easy to beat yourself up or get discouraged with those things.
Yeah, I do that with calories, but it makes sense
Yeah.
to do it with goals. So yeah, like I'm bulking right now.
Sure.
So I need to eat at least 3,500 calories a day. Sometimes I'm just like not home or something and it's literally impossible for me to hit it, but I just make up for it later on in the week. So I actually just look at weekly calories instead of per day. Similar
Yeah.
concept.
Yeah. Dude, I used to get so crazy about my daily routines that if I didn't have a good morning, like if it was all thrown out of whack, at like even if it was 10 a.m., I would get back in bed. I would like set an alarm for 20 minutes and I'd wake up and restart my day.
Wow.
Like that. That's like kind of how psychotic I got.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with being so rigid with those morning routines and, because like also part of having success in anything is being able to deal with variables, like sometimes you're just not going to sleep, but you still got to do the stuff, but, just try to get your life right as much as you can, but also being forgiven, like you're forgiving yourself. I mean, like, I have all these things that I set out to do every single day. Every once in a while, I don't do those things because of whatever reason, but I'm right back the next day doing it, and I'm back on the trail. So it's like I think a lot of people, they'll work out for a month and then they miss a day, and then on the day back they're like, well, I already missed yesterday. What is it missing 2 days in a row? And then that turns into 3 weeks. But it's just like if they would have just forgiven themselves, like I missed one day, whatever, I'll make up for it tomorrow. Then you're just back on the game, Like we're not perfect, so
Yeah. No,
Beautiful.
that's you got to kind of learn that stuff over time, but that's cool.
Max, pleasure. Anything else to leave people on before you log off here and go surfing in Puerto Rico and Rincon?
yeah. Set a goal and work towards it, whatever it is. It's that simple. Don't overthink it. You're not going to set it up right in the first place anyway, so you might as well just start working towards something and then navigate it as you go.
That's so true. You're going to blow it anyway, so don't
Yeah.
stress about it.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Love that. Max, thanks for jumping on here with us. Really
Thanks for having
appreciate
me.
it. Great catching up with you.